Pleased to have back on the show head coach of the women's national team, Bev Priestman. You know, Bev, heading into the Olympics, there was a closed-door game that you played, and based on the results, you made some changes that altered the way your team looked in Tokyo. Obviously, you walk away with the gold. You have a closed-door game coming up as well on July 14th against England. What is it that you're hoping to see from that match?
I think where we've been and the amount of injuries and changes, I think the biggest thing probably compared to the Olympics is I think in certain sort of units, there's many interchanges and options available to us. I don't think it's like this is the 11. And I think that's quite exciting for any player to be part of.
Since the Olympics, a lot of players have made some big moves to big clubs. How do you think those players' transfers will translate to the national team?
Yeah, I think firstly, they're all training with better players every single day. I think long term that makes for a better player. But then, you know, as a coach, you start to say, well, why will we win this thing? Why can we win this thing? And the reality is some of our players are in environments where they're winning every week. They're winning trophies. They're playing in front of 30, 40,000 people. And so when you go into that opening game and there's 30,000 people there, these players have lived that regularly. And I think that makes a huge difference. So I think the confidence levels, getting better every day, training with better players, and then performing on the biggest stage to try and win silverware is massive in terms of contributing to where this group wants to go.
Bev, the win at the Olympics, a lot of that is being attributed to really strong defense, but we love to see goals. So who are you relying on to score? How are you approaching your offense?
I don't think we're going to rely on one individual player, and probably nor should we. I think we've put a lot of emphasis on set plays and midfielders joining, forwards, and I think, you know, probably the first 3 or 4 days here, the players would tell you that we put a lot of work in that part of the pitch because that's the part of the pitch that's changed so much due to injuries. And so I felt we needed to get some partnerships and some understanding, you know, what type of cross does this player put in and what type of run does that need. And so I think it's going to be similar to what you've seen, where this group, you've got midfielders who can score, you've got set plays, we've got more goals from defenders than we've ever had, I think. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a blend. But what we do know at the highest level, and in the women's game now, they're not huge blowout scores that go and win World Cups or Olympic Games. One goal typically on top 10 opposition, that's what it is. And so, you know, we'll have that in our locker, and then we'll defend for our life, and we'll make sure we're a hard team to beat. And I think that's a critical component of our identity.
Is there any player in particular who has surprised you since the Olympics, who you've seen their game grow?
I think there's quite a few, you know, like Chloe Lacasse, I would say, is really start to grow in confidence in this environment. I find anybody who's not really been in our youth system, it takes them a while to get used to the tactics and the way that we work. But I think like Chloe Lacasse, we can't take away from what she's done. You've mentioned Julia Grosso's really grown in her role. Across the board, the group have risen. And I think that's not just us. I think the world has risen, you know, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but genuinely, I look at, you know, you're putting the training teams together for training, and 11 versus 11, it's a brilliant place to be with this group. And it's just exciting, and you can feel that.
Jessie Fleming, this is somebody who is really emerging as the face of this team. How do you think it's best to utilize her skills on the pitch?
Yeah, I think Jessie, the good thing is with Jessie, she's versatile. So she's played in the 10 for us. She can play a lower down. I think her movement off the ball is critical. And I do think seeing her higher up the pitch allows the interchange to happen. But I think Jessie, just working with her in Vancouver recently, I worked with her a year ago before we went into the qualifiers. Her game is just going greater and greater and greater. She's got super high standards that sometimes can be, to our own fault, she's really hard on herself. But I think massive jigsaw piece to this team. I think everybody knows that. You're scouting Canada, you're scouting Jessie Fleming.
Two of the countries in your group at the World Cup, Bev, you've recently played them in friendlies. You beat Australia both times. Nigeria, it was a win and a draw. Does that matter?
Yeah, I think performing when it really matters is the critical point, and this really matters. I think the players might draw upon some of the confidence and the performances. Probably in the last year, our best performance was against Australia, so that'll give some confidence. But I do think Australia have massively changed. You know, you're scouting almost a different team in the way that they play. But I think, you know, we can't take either of our group stage opponents for granted. It's a really difficult group. I think you look at most groups and you go, there's a given game. I don't think there's a given game in our group, and that's exciting for us. That means we rise to the challenge, we take every game in front of us, and we respect the opponents as we always do. But I think deep down, if you're a player and you scored against Nigeria or you had a great game, that's going to help you. And there's a reason we designed the way that we, approach this World Cup campaign. But no, I think for me personally as a coach, I'm like, clean slate. I've got to be better than the opposition coach in terms of scouting and knowing where this team's at now. And we take every game that comes in front of us as a clean slate.
I had a chance to speak to Christine Sinclair, and she acknowledged that a lot of the team's energy was elsewhere during the She Believes Cup, and that needed to change for the World Cup. Are you noticing a more focused group this time around?
1,000,000%. I think for me, it's been a breath of fresh air the first week. People are focused, they're excited. You can feel that buzz of like, we're here, we're going to a World Cup. And we've really pushed the group to say, you know what, whoever's in front of us in this tournament, how we train now for the next 3 weeks determines how well we do. So are you a worthy opponent for yourself, for the teammate next to you? So everything in training is super competitive and you're training like you're in a final, and that's how it's felt. But there's a level of lightness and enjoyment, because I think one message I did put, the balance has got to be right, hence why we chose where we're at now, which is, the Gold Coast, you're near the beach, there's a vibe before you go into that sort of intense bubble when we head into Melbourne on July 16th.
Bev, thanks for taking the time and best of luck.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Andi.